Okay. Thanks for joining, even though we don't see your guys' beautiful faces. We appreciate you being here. um, so we can actually kind of just dive right in to, I would love to hear when we begin, like any insight that's been really impactful for you guys so far on our team too, like any chapter, anything that's really has felt like, oh, I can apply this in my life, or oh, I didn't realize that. Anything that really has stood out to you in the book so far? For anyone? We can.
I feel like I have to think.
I have like a lot of aha moments.
Yeah.
When I listen to it,
One,
and
two. I'm gonna go get my book real quick.
and I'm always trying to
I'm gonna
think
grab
back
mine
in
too.
reference to it, but I have a lot of times that I'm like, yeah, that makes complete sense if I did that. That would be, but I
Like the
Fine.
when he was talking, and I'm not sure what chapter this was. I think it was
Yeah,
within
the
ones
chapters
that
kind of
we're
blend
in.
together if you're reading it. So
But
it's okay.
when he was talking about the woman in New York that goes to the gym in the morning and her habit, like every single morning she gets up, she gets her workout clothes on, she goes downstairs, she hails a cab and goes to the gym. And he's like, her habit is not going to the gym. Her habit is hailing the cab because
Yeah.
she knows that once she hails the cab, she's going to go, like, no matter what, she's going to the gym. Or like getting up in the morning and putting on your shoes. I have a client that says that too. Like, that's her goal. She gets up in the morning, she puts on her tennis shoes, and her goal is just to walk. She can walk for 5 minutes. Like, that's her goal, is just to walk for 5 minutes. She's like, I never do. I always go further. I always do more. But like, when your goals are small and achievable, it makes it so much easier. And like, I'm not a morning workout person. And I know that, like, when I get up in the morning, if I have my workout clothes in the bathroom and I put them on and I put on my tennis shoes and I have a small, like a very small goal, it's way more achievable. Put your tennis shoes on, right? Like, I'm going to walk on the treadmill for 5 minutes, or I'm going to, like, you already have achieved your goal when your goal was just to put on your workout clothes. So I like that. I thought that was an interesting perspective. Like the woman in New York, like hailing the cab was her habit, not.
And like how hard for her, it's like way harder than to go back home and get in bed like that. That's like, you kind of miss the moment. But if you're in bed trying to decide if you should work out, that's hard. That's like a hard thing to do. But if you're in bed and you're like, I'm just going to get dressed and hail that cab, that's all I have to do today. I can turn around and come back to bed if I need to, but you're probably not going to. I liked, he talks about, I think he called it, well, it's like the 2-minute rule, but also then he goes into habit shaping from there, which I thought was really good. And he talks about the 2-minute rule. And he talks about always stop before it's a hassle. And I think he gave another story about his friend losing 50 pounds or something. He wanted to have an exercising habit. And his only thing he did was like, he'd go to the gym and do 5 minutes of working out, or he'd even just like go to the gym and like get on the elliptical or something really basic, like just get on, then he would leave. And so he's like, then once he started, just that was part of his routine, like going to the gym and spending 5 minutes there every day. He was like, well, I'm here, I might as well do a workout. Like, so that's how he developed that habit. And it sounds so silly, but it's also like such a powerful way. Like then he was building that part, that location and that time into his day every day. So that was the first step, and not even worrying about the workout at that point. But then he got used to the environment. He got used to the schedule of it. He got used to the clothes he was wearing and the habit. And then he's like, I might as well, now I'm going to take the next step and stay and do a workout. And he talked about, start by, I think, the 2-minute basics. So he says, like, what's the first 2 minutes of that habit? Maybe it's journaling. I'm just going to write for 2 minutes. Like, doesn't have to be anything great. And then he says, advance the first 2 minutes and like master those. So maybe you have some purpose to those 2 minutes. And then, so he has like an example, if you want to be an early riser, like phase 1, be home by 10 p.m. So for like a week, he's just being home by 10 p.m. That's all he's doing. And then phase 2, have devices turned off by 10 p.m. So now he's being home and he's turning off his devices at 10. Then phase 3, be in bed by 10 p.m. every night. That's like, he checked it off, did the goal. And then phase 4, lights off by 10 p.m. every night. So he's like in bed, but he's actually turning off the lights. And then phase 5 is to wake up at 6 a.m. every day. So we didn't start with waking up at 6 because that would have been hard to create and master that habit if you didn't have the nighttime routine in place. And just starting with one thing at a time feels a lot more manageable, I think, than just like, all right, I'm done with my nighttime TV shows and I'm going to bed at 10. Like, that's really hard to do for a lot of people, to change that.
Something I really, in my own life this fall, I have, gone to bed later and I'm super tired in the morning. I feel like, okay, I need to go to bed earlier. But then I, look at like, why do I go to bed later? What is the cause of that?
It's like start breaking down those things.
Yeah, the cause of that is because I'm putting my kids to bed later. And I need my time between my kids are in bed and I am in bed.
Yeah.
So the solution then is I have to put my kids to bed earlier so that I can have my time, and then I can also go to bed earlier, instead of me then just ignoring that my kids should be in bed earlier and then feeling disappointed by myself for not getting to bed earlier every night, and that go on for 6 months and then just feeling like a failure while I'm focusing on the wrong thing, so always like,
and for you, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, for you, even taking it a step further, like, okay, why are my kids getting to bed late? Okay, in the morning, I need to think through dinner. So that's on by 5 p.m. So then we can do all the nightly activities and they're in bed and asleep by 7 or whatever it is, because it's like, for us, it's easy to get home and we get distracted. And it's like, okay, we need to have a plan from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. so that we can make all those things happen.
Or it can be like, so for us, for example, before, when I had, 2 kids, they went to bed at the same time, but now I have 3 in very different ages and they go to bed at 3 different times. So sometimes in life also things change, your routine changes because that changes with life, and, the years pass and new things come in, and then you can't necessarily continue to have the same mindset of your old routines. Now you have to find something new that works with routines that is actually going on in your life right now. And many times you have to learn that the hard way. I'm like, oh shit, this doesn't work anymore. Okay, I need to change it. But then just seeing that whole picture and really know that it's not you that are doing something wrong. It's not you that are being a failure. It's like something, that's what he says also, something in your system is wrong. It's not your action.
All goes back to those systems.
Yeah, you just have to. So take the blame off yourself and just see, okay, what change needs to be made. And then I think that then there's 2 positives in that. Then you're actually going to do what is necessary and you're taking the blame off yourself. So you're taking away the emotion of the thing. And when we can just put that aside, every change will be easier because you will have a more positive look at things and, yourself as well. So I think,
and I think creating success with the small things are what help you build that momentum. So like we were talking about this, I think in the chat group, I can't remember which one this week. I think a lot of us do this, especially this time of year. Like I have so many things on my to-do list that it just feels like I have like, this huge cloud over my head, and I'm bouncing off all these things I have to do, but like I'm in the middle of something else and I can't really think it through. So at night, I just, when I'm laying down, I like just kind of write my hot to-do list for the next day, 3 to 5 things. I can have that running list if I want, if it doesn't stress me out, like 10 to 15 things, but the only things I have to do tomorrow are 3 things. Maybe 4 or 5 if I'm like in a really good groove and they're short. So then I know when the day ends tomorrow, I have those 3 things checked off. Like I'm happy, it was successful, and I feel in control versus just feeling scattered, anxious energy because I can't do everything on my to-do list. The same goes for maybe nutrition. Like you're feeling like, oh my gosh, the holidays are happening. I got off track last weekend at that party and like, I just have so much on my plate. I don't know where to get started. So it's like, okay, I'm going to just start my day strong. I'm going to do 3 things for my nutrition to start my day strong. I'm going to drink 30 ounces of water when I wake up before I have my coffee or caffeine. I'm going to have 20 grams of protein in my breakfast. And I'm going to, it's really snowy here right now, but maybe I'm going to go for a 5-minute walk. Or I'm going to, breathe for 2 minutes, or whatever it is that you feel like starts your day off strong. Like, what are 3 things I can do when I put my feet on the floor to help me feel like I'm in control of my day? I'm in control of my morning, at least. Right. Because that's one thing you could be in control of, maybe, if you, depending on what stage of life you're in. Sometimes it's your toddler screaming wakes you up, but still, right after that, like, okay, I'm going to have my 30 ounces of water. I'm going to make those eggs that I planned on. And then, maybe I'm going to even like wipe down the counters, because that helps me feel like I can think about food for lunch. Whatever those small things can be.
I think he says that in the book as well, that you divide your day like in quarters, for example, instead of looking at the whole day. So then if you have fucked up in quarter 1, you still have 3 quarters to do good.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that your whole day needs to. So
yeah,
also just remind yourself of that. Okay, this is just one part. I still can, but at the same time, if you do really well in your first quarter, the chance that will spiral
momentum
on quite big. And then if the last quarter doesn't go as well, you have done 3 quarters really well. So that is a huge win,
Yeah. Yeah. And he talks about the calendar, like habit tracking. So we have, for our one-on-one clients, we'll have your dashboard and we go through like, what habits are you working on right now? We'll add them to your dashboard so you can like check those off every day and see your 10-day streak or whatever it is. Like, having a streak is really exciting. And like, that's the gratification there. I was just talking to my kids about that. Actually, they were complaining about, like, one teacher gives candy. My first graders teacher gives them a piece of candy if they get like a perfect score on their test. And my second graders were talking, I have twin second graders. So they were talking about how their teacher doesn't do that. And it's really frustrating. And so we got talking about like, well, what's the reward of a great test score? Like, you're learning more and you're becoming smarter and you're getting better at problem solving. Like, the reward isn't the candy. Like your boss isn't going to give you candy someday. So like, thinking of ways to reward yourself, habit tracking is a really great way to reward yourself on the behavior. And you're not buying anything for yourself. You're just seeing those streaks happen. And that's exciting. You're seeing that momentum visually. And so we talked about, he talks about printing off a calendar. And I've done this before, and I've done it with clients too, who, like, maybe you're having a hard time assessing progress or success, right, with what you're doing. So seeing it visually can be really helpful to, one, confirm like, I'm on the right track, I'm doing fantastic. Like, visually, that's gratifying. Or on the other side of it, if you think like, I'm doing really good, I don't know why I'm seeing progress, you can visually see that calendar and be like, oh, I have only 2 X's for each week of this month. Like, is that showing me that I'm moving towards the person, kind of how he talks about, like, is that a vote towards the image that I'm working towards, or is that a vote kind of against who I'm trying to be? So an example of that would be printing off a calendar, and maybe you want to start a habit of walking. So every day you walk for at least 5 minutes, you do a big X on that whole day. So then you can visually see, like, are 80% of the days X's on this calendar? Like, I'm doing pretty good in my habits, or is it like 1 out of 10 days? And that's an opportunity to think through your systems and how you can make that, 6 out of 7 days every week.
I really liked how
reevaluating the habit too.
I liked how he talked about that habit tracking, and he mentioned motivation and boredom. And it's so true. Like, you get to a point where, like, the things that you do, you're not motivated to do them. I am not motivated to wash the dishes every single night in my kitchen. I am motivated when I like wake up in the morning and like my kitchen is clean and I don't have any dishes in my sink. So I think that, thinking about it in those terms where like you have to have some sort of, like, you were talking about systems and stuff, but like the reward is that vision, right? Like, I started telling myself my dishes aren't done until they're dried and put away. And like every time I tell myself that, like, it helps me to like go through it. Also listening to the Atomic Habits book while I was doing the dishes. So like that also helps me stay motivated to do those things. But like, it does make a big difference because you're not always motivated. You're not always motivated to exercise People that exercise every day are not motivated to
Mhm.
exercise every day. It's just a habit that they do.
Mhm.
And it's part of their life. And when you really get down and think about it, there is a lot of boredom there around that.
Yeah.
So if you need something that motivates you, having that vision of like, okay, I did this every single day is huge. It can really help you in your reassurance that what you're doing is correct.
Yeah.
Well, and
I
it
like,
goes back to like what I think this is back in like chapter 10. This really stuck with me. And it goes back to, okay, what is the purpose, right? The root purpose of trying
yes.
to make or break these habits, right? And the whole point is you want to feel different, right? So he says, even the tiniest action is tinged with the motivation to feel differently than you do in the moment. When you binge eat or light up or browse social media, what you really want is not a potato chip or a cigarette or a bunch of likes. What you really want is to feel different. So if
Mhm.
you can tap into what
How's
is
that gonna
that
feel?
feeling, right? And let that dictate then your systems, right? And your end goal. It's really about like, where are you starting from? What is the root thing that you want to change?
Yeah. And I think even talking, like hyping that up for yourself can be helpful. So Casey, like with that, like I want to work out regularly. I want to be the type of person that moves daily. Like you could think about, okay, well, how do I feel in the long run when I am moving daily? Like I feel confident, I feel strong, I feel empowered. I trust, like I trust my communication to myself. That's not the right way to say that, but I trust myself in staying accountable to myself, like different things. I feel energized. I feel that endorphins. And so you could think to yourself like, okay, in that moment, like I'm going to do my 5-minute workout. And then talk through like all the benefits. Now I feel energized. Now I feel excited to tackle the rest of my day. Now I feel, whatever those 5 things, like affirming what you did, even if maybe in the short term you don't fully feel those things, in the long term you're gonna feel those things, like hyping that up in the short term. And I loved how he said, this week's been crazy for me and with motherhood. And I was actually kind of think this, even I've been working out my whole life and it's still, I'm not motivated all the time, like maybe half the time. And so this stuck out to me too. And he talks about the problem isn't slipping up. The problem is thinking if you can't do something perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. And he said bad workouts are often the most important ones. Those days maintain the compounds. He's talking about interest of compounds you accrued on previous days. And so he says it's crucial to show up when you don't feel like it. But I feel like the caveat to that, which he kind of discusses, is that it doesn't need to look the same. So for me, my 60-minute workout, lower body, that's going to be really taxing on me today. Like, oh, that feels really hard to fit in with everything else I have on my plate. And I have to also be kind of motivated to push the weight that I would normally want to push in that lower body session, which also feels hard. So I have so many options there though. Like, okay, do I have the time to dedicate 60 minutes still? If that's a yes, and like, how can I make that easier on myself mentally to just get started? Maybe that's I'm not looking at weight at all. All I'm going to do is just do the motions and move my body. And maybe I cut the weight in half of what I would normally do. So it's energizing and it feels really good still. Or maybe I only have 20 minutes. So I'm going to just pick 3 movements and do those. Like I'm going to do 10 push-ups, 15 air squats, and like 5 squat jumps, or walking lunges, 15 walking lunges. I'm just going to do 3 rounds of that. And I could knock that out in 5 minutes. And I'm going to feel the benefits that I get from moving every day and just count that as a win. Like that, I did it today. I moved, and that's a win. Like I took 5 minutes to move my body.
And maybe you do tomorrow's upper body workout, right? Because that appeals to you more.
For sure. I do that often.
Just that, right? I do that too. And I'm just like, you know what?
It's an upper body day.
I'm not feeling lower body today. I don't have the energy to put into that because those workouts are a little bit more intense. But hey, upper body is a little easier for me to wrap my head on. Let's do that today.
Yep.
Right?
I do that a lot.
Up for success.
Yeah. Like on a Monday, like sometimes Mondays are hard. So just like, okay, I'm going to move today. That might mean switching your workouts around. So you're doing what you really enjoy on Mondays. Maybe that's lower body or upper body. I mean, or maybe it's just moving in a way that supports you. Maybe sometimes I have a workout plan and I realize I have so much going on stress wise. Like I'm going to just get outside and go for a walk today for 20 minutes because that's going to really clear my mind and benefit me today. But I'm still doing the thing, like I'm still moving, and that's the goal. So thinking that through and being willing to not be perfect, but be consistent with something is the win. Like that's the win.
I think that, just in general, when we look at our clients, most often, stress is high. So then not being like fixated with the workouts, I think is important. Like a walk, it could be a walk. It could also be like you're cleaning your house today. That's a workout. You have been moving the whole day if you're doing all of your chores, all of your normal things, and then maybe you've been cleaning your house for 2 hours. That is all. You can also look at that, as a workout. I think that it all depends on how are you dealing with the stress levels? Because one busy day can be busy, but you feel like you're in control and you're getting everything you want in. The exactly same day could be just completely chaos. And the difference between those 2 days is what's going on up here. So if you are mentally prepared to do everything, you're fine. You can have busy days. But if that stresses you out to the level where you are just feeling, for example, like a failure, or you're just like, it's just a complete mess and you're exhausted, then in that situation, a walk would definitely benefit you a lot more than going into the gym. So I think you always have to assess, okay, how are my stress levels and where do they come from when we're talking about workouts? Because let's face it, as long as you're getting movement and you're doing something good for your body, and it's just as important with rest and sleep. So maybe that's not even the issue. Maybe that's not what you need to worry about.
Right.
Worry about de-stressing, do something that is completely opposite of movement, So I think definitely assess how are my stress levels and where do they come from is important, first of all, in every situation, I think. I wanted to say one thing also about Michael Phelps. This is later in the books. I'm not sure if this is beyond what we're talking about today, but I think that was also really good, just in overall how we when we plan for an habit, or we wanted to incorporate something new in our lives, do something. It's beneficial if you do something that you are fitted for, something that works well, either with where you live, how you are, how your body is built, your mindset, just so you do something that fits with your lifestyle, instead of doing something that, oh, that random person is doing this, I also want to do that because that seems, but maybe that's not for you at all. So just doing something that you have a good chance of doing good can also be just one way of choosing something that will set you up for success, instead of doing something that it will be a really tough challenge.
Like realistic goals, I think he was talking about in that section.
Knowing yourself, of course. I think that was something that really stuck with me, that we want to live our lives without it being a struggle. We want to make things as easy and enjoyable as possible. And we can either help ourselves doing that, or we can set us up selves for, the biggest challenge of our lives. So, and if you're up for that, hey, great. But it has to be, worth it, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think doing that too is like, it helps you build momentum. It helps you build trust. Like that's what it was. When you make a commitment to yourself, like you trust that you will follow through. So build that momentum by doing things that come natural. Like if you love to paint, like maybe set a habit up with that first to build that momentum. And then that will make it easier to build that trust and confidence. So when you are trying to implement a system that maybe is more challenging, like, you can do it, and you're going to set yourself up for success that way too. Cause you've already seen yourself do that too. I think that's really helpful as well.
I think
that's why I was just going to say momentum as well, is like, that's all that it is. And that's why they say, start with those small things, get those easy wins. And then it also becomes reinforcing yourself to just complete those. Like I did something easy.
Complete it.
I got the
Yeah.
momentum. I did it. I can do it. I can do it the next day. I can do it the next day. And then like increase from there.
Yeah. That's why the three, I mean, that's like the one thing I am really stick with is those 3 things on my to-do list, because for that reason, like I can end the day feeling like, done, checked it off. Even if one of those was like, make my bed, I'm like, yep, nailed it today.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, and I don't always, you know, and I kind of think through like and those 3 to-dos, they aren't always like work to-dos, you know, it might just be like, I'm going to go do something fun with the kids after school today. And I feel like, yay, I checked that off. Like, even if I'm like, man, I'm really busy right now, I'm worried about my quality time with my kids, I can still be like, I did an actionable thing to have quality time. I feel good in today, you know? So because we're always I think, especially as women, we have so much happening behind the scenes in our minds of like that mental tax. So just creating ways to feel happy and successful.
Sometimes I add things on my to-do list that I kind of have already completed just so I can check them off and say I did it. I just need like some wins there.
I just cleaned the kitchen, write that down. Check.
Oh yeah, I'm going to add some other things. Let me just add those things I just
Yep. And I think to kind of like wrap up, we can talk a little bit longer, but I think the part that I really loved too is that he talks about the breaking of the habit doesn't matter. It's the reclaiming of it fast that does. So the difference between successful people is that they're not worried about breaking a habit. Like they rebound really quickly though. And so thinking about that, like no shame, no judgment. He talks about the problem isn't slipping up. The problem is thinking if you can't do something perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. And bad work, he says he used workouts, but I think this could be anything, right? Bad days, bad, you know, whatever, bad, like a meal that didn't feel like it was in your plan. Bad workouts are often the most important ones, but not that one. He talked about, wrong spot. But basically what he said was, I won't quote him verbatim, is never miss a habit twice. So if you miss it once, it's no big deal. Try not to let it turn into twice in a row. Like try to build some success once in between at least. So if you maybe on the weekends, like you kind of go off the rails with your nutrition, it wasn't what you planned. Like, okay, what's the next quarter? Tomorrow morning at breakfast, I'm going to have a really successful meal that makes me feel really energized and ready for the day. Like, just like Henrietta talked about earlier, try not to break that habit twice in a row. That's the goal kind of. So if you break it once, like, how can I rebound from this? No shame moving forward. Like, well, how can I rebound quickly?
Or if you broke it twice, why did you break it twice?
Yeah, that's an opportunity to learn.
Get it in. So I think that's the most important thing is like what is the emotion connected to the action or the non-action? That is the important thing because I don't think it's necessarily bad to break a habit twice if that was necessary in your life in the moment. But what is bad is you feeling guilty and feeling down because you did it. Because then it becomes that you did something wrong, and
maybe you need to reevaluate.
It's like either like, okay, why didn't you do it? Was it because you wasn't able, or was it because you didn't want to? And then you have to ask, if you don't want to, okay, why am I doing it? Should I do something else instead? You know, just always just put away those negative emotions towards your own actions will just make life a lot easier. And then it will be a lot easier to actually rebound from a habit that you have gone away from, because most likely it was a legit reason for why you didn't do that, that day or those 2 days or 3 even. And if it turns out to be something you don't actually want to do, and then you have to ask yourself, okay, what do you want to do then?
I think that's a great way to look at it. Expanding on what he says, like if you break a habit once, just get back on track. If you break it twice, like use that as an opportunity to ask those questions. Like, okay, well, this habit seems to be challenging for me to keep doing. Do I want to do this habit? What's getting in the way of me doing this habit? You know, what is
perhaps? Yeah.
Yeah. And if you, and having accountability, talks about that kind of in the last chapter, like having someone to discuss those things with is really helpful too. So that might be in the groups, like your interaction in the groups, talking about like, hey guys, This is something I'm trying to do. Like what has worked for you guys with this? Like getting ideas or working with your coach. They're going to be able to help you see big picture. Okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Like maybe we need to scale that down a little bit, or maybe we need to schedule that out, or we can give you ideas and strategies as well.
Laura, I got you.
Yes. Thanks so much for joining. Would love to hear just any aha moments or insights you guys have had in the group chat, because we are still doing giveaway at the end of, so next week will be our final call for this book. So if you didn't do the habit scorecard, you could try that. If you want to set a 2-minute habit goal, let us know what it is. That would be a fun one to talk through this, I think, this time, or if just any aha moments, whatever you guys want to share. We love hearing it and talking more about it. So thanks for joining. Have a good week.